William Carter stood tall as he walked into the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The room was filled with beings from hundreds of different worlds. Some had scales, others had too many eyes, and a few glowed with strange light. William was the only human there. For 15 years, humans had been part of this council. They had learned much about space travel, medicine, and science from their alien friends. But today, William came with news that would shock them all. Representatives of the Galactic Council, William said, his voice firm but calm. I come today with an important message from Earth. Humanity has decided to withdraw from all galactic affairs, effective immediately. The chamber erupted with noise. The Xanthi aliens raised their glowing head crests in alarm. Their skin flashed bright colors showing their surprise. The logical Vexar, with their 6 arms and metallic skin, demanded to know why. This is most unexpected, said a Vexar diplomat. Humans have benefited greatly from council protection and knowledge. What reasoning supports this decision? William placed Earth's formal withdrawal notice on the central console. The machine scanned it and displayed the document for all to see. I have no further statement to make, he said simply. Then he turned and began to walk toward the exit. High Counselor Dravuan rose from his seat. The ancient Meridian was said to be over 10,000 years old. His skin was pale blue, and his 4 eyes held wisdom from countless centuries. Ambassador Carter, Dravuan called out, your species will be destroyed without our protection. You cannot survive alone in this universe. William paused at the doorway, but didn't turn around. We appreciate your concern, he said quietly. But humanity has made its decision. Then he was gone. The room exploded into chaos. Council members argued loudly among themselves. This is madness, shouted a reptilian delegate. Humans are too young and too weak to face the dangers beyond their star system. Perhaps they found a stronger ally, suggested another. Impossible, said a third. No alliance is stronger than the council. As the arguing continued, Dravuan sat silently, deep in thought. His ancient eyes narrowed as he remembered something from long ago. He had seen this pattern before, many thousands of years in the past. It worried him deeply. A smaller alien named Elzer from the Quathi Collective approached Dravuan's seat. High Counselor, what shall we do? The humans have clearly doomed themselves. Perhaps we should document their culture while they still exist. Dravuan did not answer. His mind was racing with old memories and new fears. Meanwhile, on Earth, William Carter's shuttle landed at the main government complex in Washington. Security guards escorted him to a meeting room where several important people waited. Olivia Martinez, the National Security Advisor, stood as he entered. How did it go? She asked. Exactly as expected, William replied. They were shocked, confused, and certain we're making a terrible mistake. President Samuel Wright nodded from the head of the table. And you gave them no hints about our reasons? None, sir, William confirmed. Though I suspect High Counselor Dravuan might have his suspicions. He's old enough to remember the last cycle. The president looked around the table at the serious faces of Earth's leadership. Then Phase 1 of Operation Horizon is complete. What's the status of our preparations? Olivia Martinez opened a digital file on her tablet. The deep space monitors are active and working perfectly. Commander John Bailey has the Sentinel fleet at full readiness, positioned at the outer edge of our detection grid. And the construction projects? The president asked. On schedule, Olivia answered. Though we'll need to accelerate once the evacuations begin. No one spoke for a moment. They all knew what they were preparing for. They had seen the signs in the distant stars, signs the council had missed or chosen to ignore. It won't be easy, President Wright said at last. We're now alone, faced with a threat most of our people don't yet know exists. We're not entirely alone, William said quietly, just alone in our willingness to act. Outside the window, the setting sun cast long shadows across the city. Somewhere far beyond those shadows, beyond Earth's sky, something was coming. and humanity was getting ready. 5 years passed since Earth pulled away from the Galactic Council. During this time, humans left all their space colonies. Ships carried people back to Earth, and a few close planets that humans decided to keep. This big move confused the aliens who watched from a distance. On the Galactic Council space station, alien leaders tried to understand what humans were doing. Science Director Tez, a small green being with 4 eyes, pointed at images on a large screen. "They are building something," Tez said. "Look at these pictures. Huge structures now circle Earth and their other remaining worlds." Elzar of the Quathi Collective tapped his thin fingers on the table. "Perhaps they are making shields to protect their planets. Such simple defenses would not help much." "No," said Counselor Dravwan, his ancient voice quiet but firm. "It is something else." The old alien did not explain further. He stared at the images with worry in his 4 eyes. Back on Earth, Project Director Karen Russell stood by a large window. Below her, thousands of workers moved like ants across the Nevada desert. They built massive metal pieces that would later go into space. Karen's assistant, Alan Cooper, walked up with a tablet in his hand. "Component Test 37B worked," he reported. "The quantum field stayed stable for 14 hours. That's 3 hours longer than we hoped for." Karen nodded, her face serious. "And how is the crystal production going?" "Better than planned," Alan said with a small smile. "Dr. Gregory Williams' team made some improvements. We're now making crystals 22% faster than before." Karen watched the workers below. So much depended on their speed and skill. She knew they were racing against time. Far away in deep space, beyond where the Council's ships usually traveled, Commander John Bailey sat in his dark ship. He kept most systems turned off to avoid being noticed. Only the long-range sensors stayed on, watching the distant stars. Lieutenant Diane Foster floated into the control room. In the dim light, her face looked pale and tired. "Any change?" she asked. Bailey shook his head. "Nothing yet, but all our math says they're coming. It's just a matter of time." On his screen, a map showed tiny changes in gravity waves spreading across the galaxy. These changes were like ripples in a pond after a stone is thrown in. All these ripples came from one far-away part of space that had no name. Back at the Council headquarters, 2 Vexar scientists argued about human behavior. "They act without logic," said the first. "No species would give up the protection of the Council unless they had found stronger allies." "Perhaps," said the second, "but our scans show no other ships entering or leaving human space. Whatever they plan, they do it alone." Nearby, Dravun listened but said nothing. Unlike the others, he had lived long enough to see patterns repeat. The retreat of the humans reminded him of something he witnessed long ago, when another species pulled back before disaster struck. On Earth's moon, new construction had begun. Giant metal rings stood on the gray surface, pointing toward distant stars. Workers in spacesuits moved carefully around the structures, connecting cables and placing strange crystal formations at exact points. Supervisor Jack Perry checked readings on his wrist computer. "Power flow is stable," he reported to Karen Russell via video link. "The lunar rings will be ready for testing in 3 weeks." "Good," Karen replied. "We need to stay on schedule. The latest readings from Bailey's team show the anomalies are spreading faster than expected." In his private chambers, President Wright reviewed the weekly progress reports. Each department showed green status indicators, meaning they were on track. But the president knew how thin their margins were. If the harvesters arrived before humanity was ready, he pushed that thought away. Focus on what could be controlled. Prepare, build, plan. Outside his window, normal life continued in Washington. People went to work, children played in parks. Most citizens knew only that Earth had left the Galactic Council to focus on domestic development. They had no idea what their government was preparing for, or what was coming toward them through the dark between the stars. 3 more years went by. The Galactic Council had mostly stopped talking about humans. They decided that humans were just too young and simple to handle space politics. But this calm did not last long. A Vexar science ship disappeared near where humans lived in space. The Council sent Security Commander Ziv to find out what happened. What he found surprised everyone. The Vexar ship was not destroyed. It was captured whole, and its crew was safe but not allowed to leave. When Commander Ziv got the crew back, they brought a short message. This is a restricted zone. All Council vessels must stay away from human space. This is your only warning. The Council was very angry. Who were humans to tell others where they could go in open space? The Council leaders called an emergency meeting and decided to send important people to talk to the humans. Ambassador Laura Fisher met the Council group on a huge space platform called Aegis that orbited Earth. The alien visitors noticed right away that humans had changed. The humans they remembered were friendly and eager to learn. These humans seemed serious, focused, and somehow unsettling. "We appreciate the Council's concern," Fisher said, using words that reminded the aliens of William Carter's goodbye years ago, but humanity must insist on its space borders. "You have blocked major trade routes," said the Xanthi representative, its skin flashing with angry colors. "We have shown other ways to travel," Fisher replied calmly. "The extra travel time is very small." "The Council demands to know why you are doing this," said Councillor Elzer. "You are breaking 17 space travel rules." Fisher's face stayed calm. "We no longer follow those rules." "As for why?" She paused and looked at the aliens carefully. "Tell me, has the Council noticed the strange things happening in the sickness arm of the galaxy yet?" The aliens looked at each other in confusion, except for the ancient Meridian observer, whose eyes grew wide. "I thought not," Fisher said. "This meeting is over." As the aliens were leaving, Commander Ziv noticed something strange about the space platform. It was much bigger than needed for defense or living space, and its position, along with 6 others around Earth, made a perfect 7-sided shape. Back at the Council station, the aliens argued about what to do. "They are making weapons," said Cronian General Vrak, pounding his armored fist on the table. "We all know how fast humans make war machines. Letting them continue is crazy." "Our scans found no normal weapons," said the Vexar delegate. "Whatever they are building, we have never seen anything like it." High Councillor Dravuon finally spoke after being quiet for a long time. "There is something you all should see." He turned on the big display in the center of the room. It showed star maps from the distant Cygnus arm, the same place the human ambassador had mentioned. "Our long-range watchers have seen unusual events. Stars are going dark, not in the normal way stars die, but one after another, as if—" He stopped. "As if what?" asked Elzar. "As if something is eating them," Dravuon finished. "The pattern matches very old records from before the Council formed, when beings we only call the Harvesters last moved through our galaxy." Shocked silence filled the room. "Are you saying," the Xanthi representative slowly asked, "that the humans left because they somehow knew about this danger before we did?" "Impossible," General Vrak laughed. "They barely know how to travel in space by our standards. Yet they asked us about these very star changes," Dravuon pointed out. "How did they know to look where we did not?" Meanwhile, at Sentinel Outpost Delta, Commander Bailey was talking to new soldiers who had just arrived. "The outer alarm system was triggered 3 days ago," he explained, pointing to a star map. "Whatever is coming just past the 5-light-year mark. We think it will reach the first planets where people used to live in about 8 months, which is good, because no one lives there anymore." Captain Frank Morton looked worried. "Our computer predictions say they will change direction when they find the colonies empty." "Yes," Bailey nodded grimly. "Straight toward Council space. That's when Phase 3 begins." In her office on Earth, Karen Russell studied the latest reports from the deep space monitors. The numbers confirmed her worst fears. The Harvesters were moving faster than their models had predicted. She called President Wright. Sir, we need to speed up our timeline. The threat is accelerating. How much time do we have? The president asked, his voice tired. At current speeds, the Vanguard will reach Council space in less than a year. There was silence on the line. Then, will we be ready? Karen looked at the progress charts on her wall. We have to be, sir. There won't be a second chance. The first real attack came sooner than anyone expected. The harvesters struck a Cronian outpost near what used to be human colonies. No one survived, but automatic recording devices sent back scary pictures before they went silent. The creatures were hard to describe. They were part living thing, part energy, moving through space without ships in huge swarm patterns. They ate everything: matter, energy, even the fabric of space itself. For the first time ever, the Galactic Council declared an emergency for the whole galaxy, but their response was slow because of rules and disagreements. Some alien species began their own defense plans, while others begged for everyone to work together. On Earth, President Wright spoke to the United Earth government in a closed meeting. The harvesters have arrived earlier than we thought they would, he said in a serious voice. We are speeding up our plan. Operation Horizon enters its final phase, starting today. Throughout human space, huge energy readings became visible as systems that were sleeping before now turned on. The big platforms around each world lined up perfectly, creating complex patterns that stretched across the stars. In the Aegis Command Center, Dr. Gregory Williams watched the complex network of quantum fields stabilizing around Earth. Energy level at 92% and rising, he reported. All 7 nodes are working together. Karen Russell nodded, her face lit by the display showing the entire system. Start the final adjustment sequence. We only get one chance at this. Across the room, Alan Cooper spoke quietly with General Patricia Sinclair. The Sentinel fleet reports the harvesters have changed direction. They are heading straight for the Procyon sector. The Council's main shipyards, Sinclair said with a grim face. They always attack building centers first, just like our simulations predicted. Should we warn them? Cooper asked. Sinclair's expression hardened. We tried warning them 8 years ago. They wouldn't listen. Meanwhile, the attack on the Procyon shipyards was terrible. The Council's main fleet-building facilities were destroyed in hours, despite the brave defense by the Cronian Guard. In an emergency meeting, the Galactic Council faced a hard truth. Their defenses were not enough. Their predictions showed the harvesters would reach the Council home planets within months. There's only one choice, Counselor Elzer said reluctantly. We must ask the humans for help. This idea faced strong opposition, especially from the Cronians, who had lost thousands in the shipyard attack. But as reports of new harvester sightings came in, the opposition weakened. A high-level group, led by High Counselor Dravun himself, approached the border of human space. Their messages went unanswered for days until finally, they received meeting coordinates. The meeting happened aboard a human ship unlike any the Council had seen before. Not a warship, but something much stranger. Its hull covered with intricate patterns that seemed to move when looked at directly. Admiral Sophia Green greeted them with formal politeness but no warmth. The Council is welcome aboard the Wayfinder. I understand you wish to discuss the harvester attack. How long have you known about this threat? Dravun asked directly. Green looked at the ancient alien thoughtfully. We detected the first signs shortly after joining the Council. Subtle gravity changes that matched patterns in our historical records. Your historical records? The Vexar delegate could not believe it. Humans have no records from the last harvester cycle. Your species wasn't even in space then. Not our records, Green corrected. Theirs. She turned on a display showing what looked like archaeological findings. Artifacts covered in strange symbols, pieces of ancient technology. We found these on Mars, buried for over 50,000 years. They were left by the last species to run from the harvester's previous visit through our system. We spent decades figuring out their warnings. And you didn't share this information? Dravun asked, though his tone suggested he already knew why. We tried, Green replied simply. The council dismissed our findings as primitive misunderstandings, so humanity made its choice, to prepare alone rather than die in committee. And now, asked Elzar hesitantly, will you help us? Admiral Green's face showed nothing. That decision isn't mine to make, but I will take your request to Earth. As the council representatives left the meeting room, Dravuan paused to look at a display showing the strange energy patterns connecting the human worlds. They've built a network, he said quietly. A quantum resonance network. I've only seen theoretical models of such technology. The Vexar delegate blinked its multiple eyes in surprise. For what purpose? To disrupt the harvester's feeding process, Dravuan replied. If it works. Back on Earth, the Council's plea for help caused intense debate among human leaders. The Resonance Network, the huge pattern of platforms orbiting human worlds, had required the resources of all humanity to build. The system was designed to protect human space, not the whole galaxy. In the Oval Office, President Wright met with his advisors. The talk was heated. We don't owe them anything, said General Sinclair firmly. They ignored our warnings and laughed at our concerns. This isn't about what we owe, countered Dr. Williams. The Resonance Network can be expanded. We can save billions of lives. At what cost? Sinclair demanded. Every calculation shows that stretching the network will weaken it. We could lose everything. President Wright turned to Karen Russell, who had been quiet. What do you think, Director? Russell met his eyes steadily. The General is right about the risks. Extending protection to Council space will reduce our defense strength by about 37%. But, she continued before Sinclair could speak again, Dr. Williams is also right. The network can be modified. And what do you recommend? The President asked. Russell took a deep breath. The harvesters eat everything in their path. If the Council falls, the energy released could attract more harvesters than our models predicted. Our best chance for long-term survival may be to stand together. The President nodded slowly. Prepare the modifications. I'll speak to the Council myself. In a historic message to the Galactic Council chambers, President Wright explained humanity's terms. Earth would extend the protection of the Resonance Network to Council space, but in exchange, the Council must accept humanity's independence and provide specific resources needed to strengthen the network. This is not charity, Wright concluded. This is survival, yours and ours. After a short discussion, the Council agreed. Whatever bad feelings or pride they might have had was overshadowed by the approaching doom of the harvester swarms. On the Aegis platform, now the central node of the expanded Resonance Network, a joint team of human engineers and Council scientists worked frantically to complete the final adjustments. Quantum field strength at 82%, reported Alan Cooper. It's below what we wanted, but still within working range. Karen Russell nodded grimly. It will have to be enough. She turned to the Council representatives present. Your people have left the outer systems as instructed. High Counselor Dravuan confirmed. All civilian populations have been moved behind the network's projected boundary. Then we're as ready as we'll ever be, Russell said, turning to President Wright, who had come aboard to witness the network's activation. Wright gave the order. Start full resonance. Throughout human space and extending into Council territory, the massive orbital platforms began to pulse with bright energy. Quantum fields stretched between them, forming intricate patterns visible from planetary surfaces as shimmering lights in the sky. The harvesters hit the outermost field boundaries with the force of 1,000 exploding stars. The network shook but held. On the command deck, alarms sounded as systems struggled under the massive attack. Field strength dropping, shouted Cooper. 76%, 72%. We're losing coherence in sectors 14 through 17. Dr. Williams worked frantically at his console, redirecting power from secondary nodes. We need to stabilize the quantum resonance. Outside, the harvesters swarmed against the energy barriers, their alien forms twisting as they tried to break through. Where they touched the quantum fields, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. "They're adapting to the field frequency," Russell observed, her voice steady despite the chaos, "just as the Mars artifacts predicted." "Starting frequency modulation protocol," Williams responded. The shimmering barriers began to pulse in complex, shifting patterns. On a council world near the edge of the network, people watched the sky with fear and hope. Strange lights flickered above them as the human-built shields fought against the ancient enemy. A young Xanthi turned to its parent, skin flickering with uncertainty. "Will the human shields protect us?" The elder Xanthi's colors shifted to a calming blue. "They built this network in secret for 8 years while we doubted them. They extended it to us even after we dismissed their warnings. If anyone can save us, the humans can." High above, the battle for survival raged on. The harvesters pushed against the network with increasing fury, sensing that their prey was fighting back in a way they had never encountered before. In the Aegis Command Center, Karen Russell watched the energy readings fluctuate. "Hold," she whispered to the network. "Just hold." For 3 days and nights, the battle raged across the stars. The resonance network faltered many times, but never completely failed, thanks to the joint efforts of human ingenuity and Council technology. The changes suggested by the Council scientists proved very important during critical moments when the original design would have collapsed. In the Aegis Command Center, humans and aliens worked side by side. Ancient rivals put aside their differences to face a common enemy. "Sector 23 is showing signs of straying," reported a Vexar scientist named Halvik. Alan Cooper nodded and adjusted power levels on his console, redirecting energy from sectors 18 and 19 to compensate. Karen Russell hadn't slept in over 50 hours. Her eyes were red, but her focus never wavered. "Dr. Williams, how are the frequency adjustments working?" "Better than expected," Williams replied. "The harvesters adapt quickly, but our randomization algorithms stay just ahead of them." The Council encryption keys were the missing piece we needed. High Counselor Dravuan floated nearby, his ancient eyes watching the battle displays. "In 10,000 years," he said quietly, "I have never seen species work together like this." "Necessity is a powerful motivator," Russell replied. On the 4th day, the sensors showed a change. The harvester swarms began to pull back from the network boundaries. "They're retreating," Cooper said in disbelief. "Look at this. They're actually retreating." The command center erupted in cheers. Humans and aliens embraced, differences temporarily forgotten in their relief. Admiral Green stepped forward, raising her hand for quiet. "They're not defeated," she cautioned. "Their collective intelligence has simply determined that the energy cost of breaking through our network exceeds the potential gain from feeding. They'll look for easier targets." "But there are no easier targets within reach," said a Council tactical officer. "We've created a barrier they can't cross efficiently." "For now," Green agreed, "but they'll be back, possibly with greater numbers or new adaptations." As the celebration continued around them, President Wright approached High Counselor Dravuan. "It seems we've both learned something valuable." The ancient alien inclined his head. "Indeed. Perhaps the Council's greatest error was assuming we had nothing to learn from younger species, and perhaps humanity's was thinking we could face the universe alone," Wright admitted. Together, they looked out at the stars, safe, for now, knowing this was just the beginning. The harvesters would return, perhaps stronger, but next time, they would face a galaxy united in defense. Commander Bailey's voice came through on the communication system. "Sentinel Fleet reporting. The harvesters are retreating beyond the galactic arm. We're tracking their movement. Operation Horizon is a success." Karen Russell allowed herself a small smile. "No, Commander. Operation Horizon is just beginning." In the days that followed, humans and Council species began working on a permanent defense plan. The resonance network would need to be expanded, strengthened, and maintained. More importantly, the knowledge of how to build and operate it would need to be shared. On a newly established joint training facility on Mars, human engineers taught Council scientists the principles behind quantum resonance technology. At the same time, Council experts shared their knowledge of space-time manipulation and energy conservation. The crystalline matrix needs to be aligned precisely, explained Dr. Williams to a group of alien students. Otherwise, the field collapses when the harvesters apply pressure. A young Xanthi raised its hand, skin flashing with curiosity. But how did humans develop this technology? Our records show your species only achieved spaceflight a few centuries ago. Williams smiled. We didn't develop it, not entirely. We found the basic principles in the Mars artifacts left by a species that faced the harvesters before us. We simply finished what they started. In orbit above Earth, President Wright and the full Galactic Council held a formal ceremony to establish the Galactic Defense Initiative. For the first time in Council history, a younger species was given equal standing with the founding members. Today marks not just the successful defense against the harvesters, Wright said in his address, but the beginning of a true partnership. Humanity walked away from the Council because we saw a threat that needed immediate action. We return now, not as junior members, but as equals with a shared purpose. The Council members, once so dismissive of human capabilities, listened with new respect. When High Counselor Dravuan formally recognized Earth's contribution and offered humanity a permanent seat on the Council's inner circle, the vote was unanimous. Meanwhile, in deep space, the harvesters regrouped. Their collective intelligence processed the unexpected resistance they had encountered. In all their countless cycles of consumption across multiple galaxies, they had never found prey that could resist their feeding. The next approach would require new strategies. The harvesters began to adapt. 6 months after the first battle with the harvesters, the Galactic Defense Initiative was growing stronger. New resonance nodes were being built throughout Council space. Ships carried supplies and workers between worlds that had once barely spoken to each other. On Earth, Karen Russell had been named Director of Defense Operations. She stood in the new Joint Command Center, watching as red and blue dots moved across a giant star map that covered one whole wall. The blue markers are our new nodes, she explained to the visiting Council representatives. The red ones show where we've detected harvester activity. They seem to be testing our defenses, observed Admiral Green, pointing to a cluster of red dots that moved along the edge of the network, probing for weaknesses. High Counselor Dravuan nodded. It is their way. They are old, perhaps older than life on most of our worlds. They are patient. In a laboratory below the command center, Dr. Williams and a team of mixed human and alien scientists examined data from the most recent harvester encounters. Their energy signature has changed, said Talvik, the Vexar scientist. See here. The frequency modulation is different from what we saw during the first attack. Williams frowned. They're adapting faster than we predicted. We need to adjust our models. President Wright had just finished meeting with the newly formed Galactic Security Council when Alan Cooper rushed in with urgent news. Sir, we've detected a new harvester formation approaching from the Orient sector. It's bigger than anything we've seen before. The president's face grew serious. How long until they reach the network? 3 days at their current speed. But there's something else. Cooper hesitated. They're using a different approach pattern. Commander Bailey thinks they may be trying to find a way under the network. Under it. Is that possible? Theoretically, yes. The network creates a barrier in normal space, but if they could somehow travel through subspace. Get me Russell and Williams, the president ordered, and alert the council. On a small moon in the Procyon sector, a group of human and Xanthi workers were installing a new resonance node when their sensors picked up strange readings. What is that? Asked Ben Foster, the human team leader, pointing to unusual energy fluctuations on his scanner. The lead Xanthi engineer, its skin turning a worried yellow, checked its own instruments. Unknown, but it's coming from beneath the surface. Before they could investigate further, the ground beneath them began to shake. Cracks appeared in the moon's surface, spreading outward like a spiderweb. From these cracks, strange glowing tendrils emerge, harvesters, but different from those they had seen before. These moved more slowly, more deliberately, and seemed almost solid. Foster hit his emergency beacon. Command, this is Node Installation Team 14. We have harvester contact. They're coming from inside the moon. Back at Earth Command, the alarms spread quickly. Similar reports came in from 4 other construction sites across the network. They found a way to move through solid matter, Karen Russell said, her voice tense as she reviewed the incoming data. They're bypassing our defenses by traveling through the planets and moons themselves. How is that possible? Asked Counselor Elzar. Dr. Williams pulled up sensor readings on the main screen. They've changed their physical composition. They're not just energy anymore. They've adapted to exist partly in subspace, allowing them to pass through normal matter. Admiral Green's face was grim. If they can do this, the network is useless. Not useless, corrected Karen. Just insufficient on its own. She turned to the Joint Human Council tactical team. We need a new approach. The network can still disrupt their feeding in normal space, but we need something that can affect them in subspace as well. A young human scientist named Lily Alvarez spoke up. The Mars artifacts mentioned something about this. The ancient species called it the depth charge, a way to create resonance disruptions that can affect multiple layers of reality simultaneously. Karen looked at her sharply. Can you find those references? Yes, but they're incomplete. The ancients never finished developing it before they were wiped out. Then we'll finish it for them, Karen said firmly. Humanity picked up where they left off once before. We can do it again. Throughout the galaxy, the news spread. The harvesters had found a way around humanity's defenses. Fear returned to worlds that had just begun to feel safe. But this time, the fear didn't lead to panic or blame. Instead, species that had once competed now united in their determination to survive. In shipyards that had been rebuilt after the first attack, new vessels took shape, ships designed not for war against each other, but for the defense of all intelligent life. In laboratories across dozens of worlds, scientists shared knowledge freely, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. The harvesters had adapted. Now it was civilization's turn to adapt in response. 3 weeks of non-stop work followed the discovery of the harvesters' new abilities. In labs across human and council space, scientists worked to develop the depth charge concept from the Mars artifacts. Lily Alvarez had become the lead researcher on the project. Her small team had expanded to include experts from 12 different species, each bringing unique insights. The basic idea is simple, she explained to Karen Russell and the Joint Command Team. We need to create a resonance wave that exists in both normal space and subspace simultaneously. Simple to say, but not to build, commented Talvik, who had become Lily's main partner. True, Lily agreed. But we have something the ancients didn't have, quantum folding technology from the Vexar and crystalline amplifiers from human development. Together, they might work. Meanwhile, the harvesters continued their advance. 23 worlds had been evacuated as the creatures emerged from within moons and planets across the outer systems. The resonance network still prevented them from feeding in normal space, but their ability to move through solid matter let them bypass many defenses. On the command ship Wayfinder, Admiral Green coordinated the defensive fleet. Our goal is to slow them down, she told her captains. Give the science teams the time they need to finish the depth charge. Commander Bailey, leading the scout ships, added, remember, conventional weapons have minimal effect. Focus on disruption patterns, Alpha and Beta. They at least seem to confuse the harvesters temporarily. President Wright and High Counselor Dravun addressed a joint session of human and council leadership. The meeting room was solemn as the two leaders explained the gravity of the situation. We face the greatest threat in known history, Wright said, but we face it together, with technology and knowledge neither of us would have alone. Dravuan's ancient eyes swept the room. In my 10,000 years, I have seen civilizations rise and fall. Those who stood alone always fell. Those who found common cause sometimes survived. Back in the main laboratory on Earth, Lily and her team had reached a critical moment. The first prototype depth charge was ready for testing. The device creates a quantum resonance field similar to the network, Lily explained to Dr. Williams and Karen Russell. But instead of creating a barrier, it generates a disruptive wave that should affect harvesters in both normal space and subspace. Should? Karen asked. We can't be certain until we test it, Lily admitted, and we can only test it against actual harvesters. Dr. Williams looked troubled. That's extremely risky. We're out of options, Karen said after a moment. How soon can you have deployment-ready units? 48 hours for the first batch. Maybe a week for enough to cover the main approach vectors. Do it, Karen ordered. I'll inform the president. 2 days later, the first test of the depth charge took place at a small moon already infested with harvesters. A remote-controlled ship delivered the device to the surface, while observation posts monitored from a safe distance. When activated, the depth charge emitted no visible light or sound. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, instruments detected a strange rippling effect, spreading outward in both normal space and subspace. Where this wave touched the harvesters, they seemed to freeze, then begin to break apart. It's working, shouted Alan Cooper, watching the sensor feeds. They're being disrupted at the quantum level. The celebration was brief. There was much work to do. In the days that followed, every available ship and manufacturing facility was dedicated to producing more depth charge devices. The components came from dozens of worlds: Vexar quantum manipulators, Xanthi crystalline matrices, human targeting systems, and Cronian power sources. What would have once taken years now happened in weeks as species that had distrusted each other for millennia worked side by side with a single purpose. The final battle came at the edge of Earth's solar system. The main harvester swarm, sensing the vulnerability of the species that had created the troublesome resonance network, gathered for a massive assault. Commander Bailey's fleet deployed hundreds of depth charges in a carefully planned pattern. When activated simultaneously, they created a cascading quantum disruption that spread throughout the harvester swarm. The effect was beyond what anyone had hoped for. The harvesters, unable to maintain their complex existence across multiple states of reality, began to disintegrate. In the command center, humans and aliens watched in stunned silence as the enemy that had threatened all life began to vanish from their sensors. Is it over? Someone finally asked. Karen Russell shook her head. Not over. The harvesters exist throughout the galaxy, perhaps beyond. We've won a battle, not the war. But we have the means to fight them now, President Wright said. Together. High Counselor Dravuan looked at the humans with new respect. When you walked away from the council, we thought you were destined for doom. Instead, you may have saved us all. Admiral Green allowed herself a rare smile. Humans have a saying. Sometimes you have to step back to see the bigger picture. As celebration spread across worlds that had feared extinction, plans were already being made for the next phase. Defensive systems would be established throughout the galaxy. Knowledge would be shared openly. The old rivalries would not be forgotten, but they would no longer define the future. Humanity had walked away, only to return when they were needed most. And the galaxy would never be the same.